All right, we're back. You're listening to Your Wheeling. No two ways about it here on the Watchdog, 1600 AM, 98.1 FM. I'm Chad Thalman, Vice Mayor of the City of Wheeling, in the studio with co-host Marigold Elliott, and we're joined with guest Andrew Hollis from Wheelcraft. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Oh yeah, pleasure to be here.
Andrew, I know we were talking during the commercial break. This is your busy season, the busy time of the year. It was a little tough for you to get away from the store to come into the station. And I think you said recently you had your best week you've had. So I just want to talk a little bit briefly about your business, what you guys do, what your hours are like, how you got into that business.
Okay.
And where are you located at?
Yeah, we're in Elm Grove. It's 2187 National Road, and I started working at Wheelcraft 7 years ago. I actually got the job from moving. I was looking for a place to move into Wheeling, and I ended up getting the job. I love bikes and just getting into the repairs, and I did the repairs for several years, and in January 2021 I ended up taking ownership of the business, and it's been great. It's really busy at this time of the year. Right, we're the week prior to Memorial Day here, the Heritage Trail rides on Monday, and yeah, tons of people bring in repairs. Repairs are a big part of the business. Sure.
And the Heritage Trail Ride is coming up.
Yeah.
And when is that? What's the details?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's on Monday. There's 3 different distances. It's a 10-mile, 30-mile, or 100K, 62 miles. And yeah, it's a big turnout. A couple hundred people usually show up for it. It's probably the biggest bicycle event for Wheeling.
Now, Andrew, I think I came to know you from social media, Facebook, in particular, the memories.
Yeah, it's our favorite page.
The memories of Wheeling page, and this is still on the same topic of I think you ride your bike around Wheeling a lot, and you're not from Wheeling, so you kind of have an outsider's perspective. You came to Wheeling in 2012, is that what you said?
Actually, 2015.
2015.
Yeah, that was my first visit.
So you ride your bike through a lot of the forgotten corners of Wheeling, and you've taken some really neat and interesting photos of Wheeling architecture, and you post them on the Memories of Wheeling page, and I think that's kind of how I was first introduced to you, and I really appreciate your pictures, and it's a different perspective sometimes, I think, when you're on a bike or a pedestrian, taking pictures of certain sections of Wheeling as opposed to in a car driving by. So I guess what have you noticed over the years with Wheeling's architecture in the city of Wheeling?
Yeah, I really love the architecture around here. I came across the Wheeling Memories page like last summer, last fall, and I take a ton of pictures. So I just posted pictures from like the past 7 years of living in Wheeling, things that might have been interesting, and then just from then, I ride my bike around a lot, usually in the older neighborhoods in East Wheeling and South Wheeling and things in North Wheeling, and I just take pictures of the architecture. I love all the 1800s homes and stuff, and the alleyways and the steps, all that. And I love hearing people's comments about. If I'll post a house, somebody was surely going to say they lived there 20 years ago or something like that.
Well, I definitely noticed your pictures. I think you do bring that outsider's perspective, which is great, because sometimes we take our architecture for granted here. I know growing up here, I didn't really appreciate it until I moved away and came back and started looking at the buildings around us with a fresh light. But one of the reasons I think, drawn to your post on that page is because you come at it, it's not always necessarily a positive perspective, but you post from a constructive perspective. Like, you want to help, you're here, you want to bring attention to this. Like, you don't post with the common perspective on that page, which is, oh my God, Wheeling was so much better in 1950, I hate my life, which is what the page often comes off as. But on some of the recent posts, and I'm sure even your posts have done this, like anything about anywhere around downtown that gets posted in that page, what's the default comment go to? Fix the streets, right? Fix the streets.
Yeah, for sure.
And so much conversation is stifled because things get posted on that page, and it becomes a fix the streets conversation. I really appreciate your perspective. One of the things that I think getting more people. I guess one question I have for you is, what's the best strategy we can take to get more people out of their cars and either on bikes or walking around more, because I think that's where you really get a chance to really appreciate some of this. Because, I mean, like the Vice Mayor says, when you're just driving by in a car, you tend to, your range of vision is normally straight ahead. You're not looking up very much. You're not looking around. You're not looking behind you. But when you're out there walking or biking, your head can be on a swivel a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. I've even had people comment on some of the pictures, like that they've lived in Wheeling their whole life and they don't know where this is or something like that. And I really appreciate like walking and biking and just being able to see a lot more. You're not going to pick out, if you're going 35 miles an hour down the street, you're not going to pick out the architecture details, like all the work that went into a home or a building, you know.
And the one thing I noticed, because my wife and I spend a lot of time in our second floor sort of turret window there looking out over Market Street, and this is not an exaggeration, probably 95% of the passersby are on foot, like never even look up.
Oh, yeah.
And so you could be standing there naked and like, no one would ever notice you. So my question is, you know, how do you get people to look up and appreciate it? Like growing up here, I never looked up. You know, I used to go to the Italian Festival when it was on Market Street back in a long time ago. You've probably seen pictures on the memories page when the Italian Festival was right on Market Street. And I never remember seeing the building that I now own. It's just, it never even occurred to me to look up. So how can we get people more interested in this? Is it biking? Is it walking? Is it a PR campaign? Because we have so much wonderful architecture here. And that's why that page, Members of Wheeling, is a great, that's why I keep coming back to the page, because you get more pictures and more history, which I love. But you always have to, there it comes with the necessary trade-off of all the negativity. How can we get folks more interested in this?
I mean, just walking around, just walking the neighborhoods, walking the streets, you know, Center Market, that's a beautiful area, walking around there, and even East Wheeling. I mean, you have to walk to really appreciate it. I want to add that when I moved here, I moved into the Churchfield building in 12th Street. It's had a turret too.
Yes,
it was awesome. When I moved there, it was like half the price of Pittsburgh. I'm from Pittsburgh, and like I just was blown away. It's like from 1860 or something. So awesome.
I know the property you're talking about, a beautiful building. There's something about a turret, you know. I never sort of envisioned myself owning an old Victorian building, but you know, the turret was probably built more for a show for the outside than it was for the inside. But really, when you're inside one, it gives you, a really great perspective. And that's where my wife and I spend a lot of our time. We sit there. If you open up windows on both sides of the turret, you get a cross breeze, and it's just a great place to do that. Sit there. You mentioned the other thing, though, coming from Pittsburgh, right? What did the property values really look like? And what surprised you most about the property values here when you came here? For some of those historic properties, they are super cheap comparatively. North Wheeling and East Wheeling, like, and Pittsburgh
it's fraction of the price.
And Pittsburgh is considered a relatively affordable, bigger city. You know, I'm not sure how they've done it, but their cost of living is actually relatively reasonable. When you go into some markets, I know I lived in D.C. for several years. It's not even apples and oranges, the market there versus here. What you get for your dollar there is so minimal. And you know, I look at our real estate market as we never really had a big bubble or a big bottom. We've just kind of been slowly flatlining for a long time. I think things are starting to turn up, though. I've seen some more interesting properties. I know when I bought my building, there was a lot of downtown properties that were available then at rates that are really low. Now, you know, it's harder to find those properties, and I'm seeing more properties on the market for higher rates. So I think things are pushing up a little bit. But at the same time, I think we have a long time to go to where those we see anything comparable at the prices they have. Having a city like Pittsburgh, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe Wheeling's affordability continues to be one of its best assets. I do want to ask you about something you said, which I kind of tickled my heart the other day. When Chad emailed you to come on the show, can I quote you said in response?
Yeah.
You said, "I try to listen to your radio program every week. It's like the best place to get the scoop of what is happening in the city."
It is.
Wow, did that bring a smile to my face? I hope other people feel the same way. I can't promise that, but you know, we started this show. What was it, in 2019, Mr. Vice Mayor?
We did 2 hours at one point. You know, so it's 2018, 2019. We started. Of course, when we were running for office in 2015, we were a guest on the radio a lot. Around 2016, 2017, we were occasionally asked on to fill in for for Howard or somebody, when they were going on vacation as a guest host. And then we kind of became regulars. And I think at one point in time we were doing a 2-hour show. And for the last, I think, since 2019, it's been a 1-hour show. We did have to take a break for about 6 months during the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And then after the 2020 election, we were back on. Andrew, you mentioned, I think, that you came to Wheeling in 2015, and I'm sure I'm biased, being a member of Wheeling City Council, but what have you seen changes here in the city of Wheeling from 2015 into the present? And if so, what are those changes that you've seen? What direction do you think Wheeling's headed in? What do you think Wheeling's doing good, and what do you think Wheeling could do better?
Yeah, I mean, a big thing is the health plan moving here for sure. That's the biggest thing that's happened since I moved here.
It's the biggest thing that happened in downtown since the 80s. Yeah.
And let me just think. Give me.
I'm just curious, because I think a lot of times, and we've talked about this before, the Memories of Wheeling page is a page where a lot of people, and I was born in '82, so I, of course, wasn't alive in the 50s or 60s when downtown may have been, at its height. But I think a lot of people view Wheeling through the lens of it was better, in the 1950s. It was better in the 1960s. Of course, I wasn't alive at that point in time, so I don't have those thoughts or I don't have those memories. And I'm just curious if, from your point of view, coming here for the first time in 2015, if you think Wheeling's headed, in a positive direction, and what you think Wheeling's doing right, and what you think Wheeling could do better.
Yeah.
I'm curious, your perspective from kind of an outsider who wasn't here in the 50s, 60s, 80s, and 90s.
I just needed a minute to think about it. Well, first, Center Market is definitely on the upswing since moving here, and on the future, it definitely looks positive. Though I'm really excited about the parking garage with the storefronts associated with it. It's a really big deal. It's a really good location for a business, being right next to the apartments and the health plan, and also kind of attaching to the plaza area there too.
Yeah.
That's really a positive for the future right there.
Yeah, I feel like that entire block, and Merritt, you live, not too far from that block, but I feel like that entire block, for the most part, is getting a major makeover from, starting in 2020, 2021. In 2 or 3 years from now, that whole block is going to be, multiple buildings are going to be completely transformed.
Yeah, and the goal is to have that block, really pretty much from 11th to 12th Street be consisted of retail storefronts, of which right now it really is somewhat limited in that regard. So if you do take the parking garage and add 3 or 4 storefronts there, you ideally have some storefront in the Chris Miller building. Of course, Wheeling Pit itself is going to have some storefronts in it as well. And so that block becomes, and of course, it's right across the street from where the health plan is, that biggest investment we talked about. This would be, the investment in Wheeling Pit would actually be almost double the size of the investment in the health plan itself. So, I mean, that's the scale of this project. It's a $30+ million project. So you add that to what's going on with the Jeff Woda project up in the north end of downtown, and you look at what's going on with the McClure and some other projects, the Fort Henry Club. All of these are multi-million dollars investments taking place right now. And then you throw in the streetscape, which I know is a sore spot for so many of us. But when the streetscape happens, and all signs are pointing, I keep saying this, but signs are pointing to things moving forward this year. And once it starts, it's going to be some inconvenience for folks. It's going to be hard to get in and out of buildings, and while sidewalks are torn up. But I mean, it is going to change everything about the way downtown looks and feels. And I think we talked off the air, and then there was a thread where we talked about this the other day. I think the mistake so many people on that page make, and I'm talking about the members of Wheeling page, is to compare downtown Wheeling today versus it at its height. Let's just say, 58's the year I was used as the height, but I don't know, maybe it was 62, maybe it was 60. I don't know what the year was. But there was a year where downtown Wheeling peaked, and it was as packed as ever with buildings and businesses and people. We've all seen those pictures on the page where the sidewalks are just, shoulder to shoulder people walking. Right? So whatever that peak was, if you compare downtown today to that, it's not going to win. That is obvious. But why, like your perspective is, you're not comparing downtown to 1950. You're comparing downtown to when you moved here. Yeah. And if you compare downtown to where it was in 2008, it's a lot better. It's not perfect, and I don't know why. it has to be perfect for people to recognize that it's better, but for whatever reason, it's either not everything it was in 1958 or it's terrible, and there's a lot of gray area in between, and for me what's important is not where you are, but where you're going. I think we're going up, and I think it's going to take more people with your positive outlook to kind of, get people to buy in, but, I'm an optimist, you're an optimist, I assume. I know the vice mayor tries to be an optimist despite, being on city council can crush your optimism sometimes.
You gotta be optimistic if you're a small business owner.
Well, you have to.
For sure.
And Andrew, I do want to make sure we talk a little bit about your business. So again, like what are your hours and what are kind of some of the services you offer and what's your typical customer come to you looking for?
Oh, okay. Wheelcraft is open 10 to 6 Tuesday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturday. We have a nice selection of new bikes, about over 100 in stock right now. Nice. All sizes. And I mean, people like the new bikes. They think that's all we do, but we're really big into repairs.
Yes, and I have a bike that needs some repairs. I'm probably going to be hitting you up here after the. A couple years ago, I bought my wife a bike from you. I bought my wife her bike from you guys, and you guys do this a nice thing where you post a photo on Instagram of anyone buying a bike. And I had to ask you not to post because it was for her birthday. And I didn't want her to know. Yeah. So I think you posted it the week later exactly as I asked. But that was great, and she still loves it. So, any specials coming up? Any like spring savers on tune-ups or any deals going on?
Tune-up $79. We go over the whole bike, clean it up, oil the chain, get everything adjusted properly. It's a good idea. I mean, there's a lot of people like yourself that bought a bike 5 or 10 years ago and haven't, it's been gathering dust.
Well, I've got one that's about 15 years old that needs it.
Yeah.
We got just a minute left. Answer me this question. I've got a mountain bike, and I don't know why I bought a mountain bike because I've never actually biked on a mountain. What are the disadvantages of riding a mountain bike on just like the trail per se, and why should I consider switching what I have?
Okay, you need to have smoother tires. The Navi tires are bad on the street, and also like a hybrid has a bigger, thinner tire, like a taller tire. That helps roll over the bumps smoother. So,
all right.
Yes.
Well, I think I'm going to need to upgrade then and switch. So maybe I'll. Do you guys sell bikes on consignment there, or just bio bikes?
Yeah, we do trade-ins. Yeah.
That sounds good. Good news to know. So we're probably out of time here. Mr. Vice Mayor, anything else?
No, I hear the music coming on, so that means the show is winding down. You've been listening to Your Wheeling, No Two Ways About It here on The Watchdog. Andrew Hollis, thanks for coming in.
Oh, yeah, pleasure.
And stay tuned in. Living and Son, you're up next.